attendees are joining. 30, 35, 50, 60, 64, 79, 87, 98, 106. We had about 2,000 people register. So we do have quite some number that are going to join us.
Yeah, for someone who is new to these webinars, please start chatting with us and put it in the chat panel where you are dialing in from. I see some familiar names from time zones where it is already midnight probably. So thanks for joining that late.
We are now going to be live broadcasting this to YouTube as well. There are a lot of people. Okay, I'm going to try and cover some of these. Serbia, Switzerland, Romania, Prague, India, South Africa, chat is working, Finland, Italy, Holland, Paris, like they're scrolling past me too quickly, Finland, Germany, Hungary, Finland, Canada, Hamburg, Germany, Romania, Germany, Indonesia, wow, Netherlands, Australia. A lot of people. I'm sure it's quite late for you. I see way too many people to see. So I think, everyone can see those. So welcome everyone from around the world. That is fantastic to see. Maybe Akos, you could also repost that as well.
I will try. Hello, Enrico. I just saw your message. Thank you very much. Nice to see you here.
We have got a packed lineup for you. There are 4 of us that will be posting, and also there'll be teams answering questions in the background. Let's take a breath and you tell me, you guys ready to rock and roll? Sounds good. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to be talking about BIM checking and using the information delivery specification, the IDS. This is a really fundamental principle that we have seen introduced by buildingSMART that enables us to not just understand specifications as humans, but also machines to be able to interpret them. So today we're going to look at how that goes about with using Plannerly to define the specification and Solibri to check that specification. We should be under 30 minutes and we'll have some time for Q&A, but the main part is going to be a live demo at the end. We're going to define and create these information delivery specifications inside of Plannerly, where we're defining down to potentially the elements, the properties, and also all of the allowable values. Export that file as a specification, as this file that then can be downloaded. And then inside of Solibri, we would then be able to import that file and use it to check the model. It's as simple as that. So once we have defined the information as a structured set of requirements, that can then be brought into Solibri and we can start to identify whether we've met those requirements or not. Pretty seamless, pretty smooth workflow if you have a standard to follow. So for that, we thank the buildingSMART team for defining this and allowing lots of teams around the world to be able to follow this. Just to be able to position this today, what do we do? What's the traditional approach? How do we define information requirements today? Well, there are lots of different ways, unfortunately, and it tends to be in a spreadsheet form. And when we define spreadsheets, they can look very pretty with lots of different colors, but they become error prone or they are unmanageable. It's pretty challenging to read some of these, let alone for a machine to read it and to be able to interpret it. What happens, Pasi, when we define information requirements like that in spreadsheets? What tends to happen on projects?
There is a lot of lost work, and I think we have lots of people who maybe have like better experience of this, like in the real world, than we do. There is like a good place to be when you have the information, right information in the right places in the right time, and that's what we are trying to get to with IDS.
Absolutely, yeah. There have been some really challenging situations. I actually had a call even yesterday with somebody saying, how do I check an LOD 300 model? It's a bit challenging when you haven't got the definition of really what that is down to what we need it to be so that you can then automatically check it. So a lot of the time things go wrong. It ends up in lots of wasted effort. Today we're going to talk about a brief introduction to what IDS is, and then we'll look very quickly at how to create and how to check. But then the bulk of today will be a demonstration So live demonstration using Plannerly to create the IDS and then Solibri to check the IDS. Akos, can you help us out with a bit of an intro? Tell us more. What is IDS?
Sure. Information Delivery Specification, what IDS stands for. So imagine that we are in the very early phase of the project. We are trying to, first of all, find out why we are doing BIM in the first place. Really agree with all the stakeholders, all the external, internal teams, communicating to our customers upstream, to our suppliers downstream, and really agree on the different use cases, because for each and every use case, we might need different kind of information in the models to make those decisions. So there is a human-to-human interaction, and we have to make it as easy, as simple, as straightforward as possible, with visuals even better to really communicate with humans. But then we step into the next phase, into the execution phase. It is a beautiful picture about how humans and machines are going to talk to each other in those phases. So whatever we agreed on with the experts, with the humans, that's something that we want to reuse in the execution phase. And for us, in the BIM environment, execution, of course, means using modeling applications, using authoring tools, quality checking tools. So the information requirements, especially that we agreed on in the agreement phase, has to be communicated and moved on to the execution phase in a machine-readable format. The IDS is a standardized way to let humans interact with each other, but a human-to-machine and machine-to-machine interaction to make sure that the project execution is as effective as possible. There is another standard that helps us in this one, also coming from buildingSMART, the data dictionary. And as the name suggests, it's a collection of data that helps you getting started with the projects, also in the standardized way. So let it be classifications and different kind of structures where you can put your requirements into structure the way you are going to work, or let it be parameters, properties that also starts talking about allowed values and different kind of units and definitions. So all that collected into buildingSMART data dictionary domains that you can start using. And actually, if you take a look at the entire workflow, you would probably start with the BSDD to look up the right set of information that you want to work with on the exact project. Once you have an agreement, then using the IDS to communicate this agreement to the next steps, to the machines, to the software applications.
Very cool, very cool. So the IDS is the framework, and the buildingSMART data dictionary is the dictionary that makes sure everyone talks the same language or a language. That sounds great. So how do you create one? How do you create an IDS? Well, inside of Plannerly, you can choose the dictionaries for both the properties and the classifications in the main settings. And then once you've done that, you can define by typing inside of a line item, and by typing, it searches that data dictionary. In this case, it's a retaining wall and understanding exactly what the code is, so everyone's talking the same language. And then as you define a requirement at a milestone, we're also searching, in this case, for material types as properties, and they are filled in, so everyone's using that same language again. And the parts that are important as well are defining rules that we are now following to make sure that we're checking what we need. And here we've got the verification rule, a load of different ways of defining that, whether it's a list of comma separated values or a date or anything like that. And then when we're defining that and exporting that, we're able to create us an IDS. And that IDS is a machine readable format, not very attractive for humans maybe, but hopefully this session today will unpack that. And what we see, if I make it more into a tree structure on the right-hand side, and the right-hand side is the same data as we have on the left. The first part of an IDS is all the information about the project and the standard, the version, etc. The next parts are the specifications. We have a piece which is applicability, so it's saying make sure that this applies to only this set, in this case the walls of this code, this classification structure, and make sure these requirements, in this case it's this property inside this property set, all common as a property set, is one of these values. So it's breaking down this machine readable into a human readable as well. But essentially in this specification, we're saying that walls, IFC walls of this classification must have this property, and the property value must be one of these things. So that's what we'll go through in a moment. As we have defined that IDS, how would you start to then check that IDS?
You import the IDS file to Solibri, and then you check. So, and then you have issues. If you are unlucky, if you are very lucky, then you don't have any issues, and your model is good to go to the next phase. So here we are. Yeah, just saying that some properties are missing as well.
Very cool. So shall we jump into a demo and walk everyone through that?
Yes, let's go.
Cool. Okay. So you guys can see my screen. Let me jump to show Plannerly, and we're going to create a new project. When I create that new project, we're presented with the docs module first. I may as well one-click a BIM execution plan just to show you how that works. So now we've got a BIM execution plan, but the main focus is the scope, defining that set of information requirements. Just to recap, we're going to define information about, and then the applicability, then the requirements, and then the restrictions. So one of the things that we actually don't have to worry too much about is inside for setting up that information. In the first part, as we define the project name is already defined. It understands who I am. It also hooks up to the buildingSMART classification and properties domains, or the dictionaries that we have already selected. But if you wanted to change that, you could simply go back to the dashboard and choose which of those you would like to hook into. And that's a pretty simple selection. Once you define that in the scope, as you start to create content, let me close the library. If I start to create content in here and start typing, as I type, it would then present me with all of the options. And by selecting the option, it doesn't just select that option for the classification, but also all of the other details about what we would like to use as well. So here we've got, oh, that was subtitle. Let me turn on the entity types, and let's define that as the IFC wall entity. So here we're saying that walls of this classification have a certain requirement at a certain milestone. And for that requirement, we are going to require the information. And in this example, we said we want to have a material. I don't have any of those properties in my project library, but there are 82 that start with MAT or have MAT somewhere in them. And if I was to choose in this example of material type, let's say, now we are requesting, let me close and open this. We're requesting material type of any value at this stage. It could be defined for a specific team at this, for this specific entity of walls in this classification. So it'd be how you would define it. Before I finish that one, I'm going to say, here's one I prepared earlier. So on the library, if you've done this for a project before, you can simply go to that project. I'm going to go to a demo that we've already set up, and we've already got some of these that are defined, and I can add them to my project with one click and close my library. And then I can start to identify what those elements are, and also what all of the options are for, even down to, so if we looked at the one of these as a property, so we've got text contains on some of these, we've got certain statuses, maybe we would have different pick lists. So if we've got here the doors fire rating must be one of these 3 comma separated values. So once we've defined this as a specification, we would need to share this with a team that's going to be checking it or using it to create the models. And that is as simple as hitting the export and saying, I want to create a specification. And actually, I must say that this is, to be able to do this inside of Plannerly, it's free to get to this stage, even in the free product, and to create an IDS file as well. There is a certain restriction on the amount that you can create, but it gives you a flavor of that should you wish to do that and try that on a project. Then when you get to the export, I'm going to export this specification. And as I'm going to start to choose some of these. Pasi, do you want the classifications on or off? On?
Yeah, on.
Great.
Yes.
Perfect. And I'm simply going to hit the create button. It's going to create me my specification, and I could either share a public link to that specification, or in this case, I'm going to collaborate with Pasi, and I'm going to invite him to my team, and I'm going to give him manager rights so that we can truly collaborate together. And then I'm going to let Pasi come in and grab that file. So it's untitled project at the moment. Let me stop sharing my screen and let you share your screen.
All right. I hope you see my screen. I'm going to this project, and then I go to this file manager, and I will download this file, and then I will stop sharing this screen, and I share my Solibri. I just drag the IDS file here, and then we have it. And then I can check the model, and we have some issues. So we have these slabs, and there are some property sets missing. Acoustic rating is not in this defined for this slab, and then also for the fire rating. Cardinality is like this kind of nerd talk. I think we'll change it soon to something more understandable. There is one rule that actually passes, and then we have some doors that are missing properties. There are some invalid fire ratings for the doors. What do we have for walls? The properties missing here as well. So properties missing, or they have wrong values. So that's the thing in a nutshell. How are we doing? We have 8 minutes to go.
Do we make it look too easy? Hopefully there's some questions in the chat and in the Q&A. We also have the poll to take a look at. I see that fantastic, 88% of people have completed the poll. So if you are yet to do that, please jump in there. We'd love to understand who you are and how we can help. There's some fun questions in there as well. Hopefully you find them fun. We looked at what an IDS is and how the dictionary helps us to define information delivery specifications in a way that is actually standardized. So it's not just a good framework, but with bad data. It's actually a combination of really good data inside of a great framework that humans and machines can understand. We looked at how quickly you can create an IDS and how you can reuse it inside of Plannerly. And then inside of Solibri, how you would import that and use that to check the model against that set of requirements. And then we showed you a demonstration of how you would do that inside of Plannerly and how the file is created. And then I added Pasi to download the file. You could share a link. You could collaborate on a live project. And inside of that workflow, you can really understand exactly what you're trying to achieve with the model, which elements are important, which properties are important. Are you worried about them? You know, they need to be in a property set. They need to have certain allowable values, or they need to be in a certain format, in a date, as a date or something. If you're an owner, you're worried about collecting warranty details. You need to have when the warranty is up, or a description of what is allowed inside of that warranty in a way that can be then read into your operations and maintenance tools. So being able to define that is really, really important. Let's jump quickly to Q&A. Akos, where should we start?
It's not that easy to decide. So running through all the questions that we have in the Q&A and in the chat panel, and Maya suggested that questions should come into the Q&A so we can focus on something. But I saw a huge excitement around the topic from all around the world, as you can tell that, and lots of professionals and I see some educational institutes as well being interested in the topic. So I think that's an excellent sign. And again, as you said, a huge thank you for buildingSMART to bringing this standard for us. If I just start looking at the Q&A panel, the first one that I see from Sylvain: can you build specifications in an object-oriented way? Define specifications for one abstract element and enrich it for children elements. The short answer is yes. If you are
Okay, cool.
using the Plannerly as an tool to agree on the specifications and the requirements, absolutely. So you can build up your classification structure, potentially coming from a BSDD, and then creating your groups of objects and going down into children level. Absolutely doable.
There's one interesting question, like how about intentionally violating buildingSMART standards, making up new pieces? In IDS, you can require some property sets that are kind of local, or well, you can require any arbitrary property set, but people will start thinking about these IDSs and how they will apply those in their like projects, and hopefully also regionally, so that you don't have like a new IDS file for every project. The requirements would be the same for several projects to make things easier and life easier.
There was a question that says, what are the typical next steps for the modeler after sharing an IDS or from Plannerly? Say they are using Revit, what prep stroke setup needs to happen on their end to make it recognizable? I just grabbed a link to an add-on that's available that will read an IDS from Plannerly inside of Revit. Let me put that link in the chat. It basically allows you to grab the properties and allowable values inside of Revit to be able to apply them. So I think that this workflow is not just a defining and checking. It's actually really useful to help the teams that are going to model as well, so that can then be used in the creation of the content as well, creation of the models. Brilliant. Thanks.
I also saw a question. Is it possible to make multiple IDSs from one scope to check multiple different models from different parties? Absolutely. So defining a use case with all that related requirements and responsibilities can be exported as an IDS and checked against various models. So absolutely doable. So we are creating the IDS per use case.
Can you see my screen still?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I just simply adding some folders in here. So you've got architectural scope and then structural scope for also multiple milestones and different use cases. When you create that IDS file, you're actually able to say, even drill down and say what team member maybe, or what requirement is important, what milestone are you really interested in, and filter by a team, for example. So when you're creating that IDS, that's actually what forms part of their contract. And inside of Plannerly, just to kind of sort of share a bit more, is that the document side is creating a combination of exchange information requirements, which can bind in that set of requirements from an IDS perspective into a contract that is specific for, let's say, the architect, or let's say the engineer that's putting the lights in at the end of the project, for example, and needs the warranty details. So it's really, specific for what they're looking for.
I have another one from Larissa. Is there a way to import existing information requirements into Plannerly, and what specifications are necessary for this? So actually, if you go to Plannerly and look into the information requirements tab inside your scope module, you can even download an example how it has to be formatted. That's something that you can see on the screen now, and then just importing it from that CSV Excel file is absolutely doable.
And we, just as far as this is a list of how those properties might be and any verification rules, etc., and the tagging. But in addition to that, you could import a list of requirements. And then in addition to that, we are actually building something that will allow you to import that combination as well. So that might be interesting for some of those people that are using Plannerly already. I've got to say, I'm blown away. I'm really trying my best to understand, look at the Q&A and look at the chat. But I need some help. What direction should we go in? There's so much. We could probably stay on forever. We promised that it would be a 30-minute session, so I'm sure that there's a lot that we can follow up in afterwards. And yes, there will be a recording. I can see a lot of people asking, is there a recording? We've got a recording, and then I would also recommend, we've got a great YouTube channel that we release a lot of content on, and you'll see more and more IDS specific content on there in the coming weeks, especially with buildingSMART being next week as well. you'll see more from us there.
Yeah, there are lots of questions. So somebody is asking, is there already rules for checking IDS? So in Solibri, there is this IDS rule 936 onward. I recommend to take the latest Solibri because we have improved the support. Right now, IDS is still not yet released for the final version, but already the version that is out is quite usable. Like the standard is still a bit evolving.
You can use rule 244 to check the IDS in Solibri.
And I just shared the results from the poll if everyone's interested in that. It looks like we've got lots of architects, engineers, and service providers on the call, some owners and some contractors. And then we've got a lot of people that define those requirements. That's good. A lot of people that check the requirements, people that manage the whole process, kind of split between. That's really interesting. And then a lot of current Plannerly and Solibri users. That's great. I love the fact that there are some people that are using other tools and keeping their options open. We're here to help you if you're interested in chatting. I'm sure Akos could put a link in the chat as well if you wanted to get a demo of either Plannerly or Solibri. We'd love to help.
All right. So Bruce Carnerico, he's talking about general rules. Maybe there is something, some misunderstanding about how Solibri handles this IDS. For Solibri, this IDS is kind of parameter, like a specification that we read, and then we check it. So we check the IDS specification, and that kind of define the rule, what should be checked. Hopefully that answers the question.
I'm really thankful for everyone joining us. Guys, do you want to keep going and run through some of these, or shall we answer them individually? What's the best way to do this? Maya, maybe you could help us make a decision here as well.
Of all the participants, so we could maybe answer these like offline and then share the answers with everybody.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So we'll collect all of these and we'll share a Q&A page or 10 pages after the webinar.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. Well, it's so good to see the interest in IDS. It's like fantastic that teams around the world are interested in standardizing this and making their lives, hopefully, and other people's lives easier. So thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I realized that I saw the results of the poll on my screen, but there are the results. We'll also share those in a follow-up as well. It's really cool to see so many people from so many different places and also so many different parts of the workflow joining us. Any last words, Pasi? How cool. And hopefully
thanks.
On the line as well. We'll see you in Valencia. Take care. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.